Thanksgiving is a time for families to get together, and you know you've got lots of amazing family favorite recipes. And I have got you some amazing recipes. This video. Hey friends, my name's Susan, and welcome to our home. Today I've got you some of our family favorite Thanksgiving recipes that I make each year. You're gonna love them, because our family sure does. So let's get our ponytails up and let's get to making some amazing Thanksgiving recipes. You know you want to try them. You want to impress your family for Thanksgiving? Well, I've got the recipes for you. So come on, let's get to cooking. And here's a recipe that I've been using for years. We're going to need 3 cups of sweet potatoes, cooked and mashed. Half a cup of sugar, which I've got the sugar right there. 2 eggs that I'll get out of the refrigerator. A half a cup of evaporated milk. A teaspoon of vanilla, and I use the imitation vanilla. I can't tell that much of a difference. A pinch of salt. A 1/3 cup of butter, which basically I melt a full stick of salted butter. Then for the topping, we'll need a 1/3 cup of flour. A cup of brown sugar. A cup of chopped pecans, and again a melted 1/3 cup of butter. And for the actual sweet potatoes, I do add some cinnamon sugar and some of my homemade pumpkin pie spice. If y'all want me to put the recipe in, I will, but this stuff is so good and it's going to make this recipe amazing. So let's get started. I melt 1 of the sticks of butter in the microwave in this Pyrex measuring cup. It's a 2-quart measuring cup. That way I can make the topping. I'm going to go ahead and put the butter in the measuring cup and put it in the microwave for about a minute. And while the sweet potatoes are heating up right now, I'm going to go ahead and do the topping. The topping calls for 1 cup of brown sugar, 1/3 cup of flour, 1 cup of chopped pecans. Yep, that's a full cup, but that'll work. And the melted butter I just did in the microwave, the 1 stick of butter melted. And what you're going to do is you're going to mix this together. And then you're going to put it in the fridge. But let me show you what it looks like once you mix it. You don't have to mix it extremely well, but you want it definitely to absorb all the butter into the flour and sugar, because this is going to make kind of like a pecan streusel type topping on top, which to me it's like candied pecans if you've ever had them. It is so good. And now, I don't see any white flour in that. It's all absorbed with the sugar and the butter. And it's time to put it in the refrigerator for just a little bit. You want it not to be this soft. You want it to be a little bit firmer. That way it will stay on top of the sweet potatoes whenever you put them in the container. So let's put this in the fridge for a little bit, and then we'll come back and do the sweet potato portion. Drain the sweet potatoes well before I put them into the pan. And because they were so small, I did not have to mash them. If your sweet potatoes are larger, after you let them warm up a little bit, then you may need to use a potato masher, but I did not. They basically, as I stirred them, just kind of broke apart like this and became a mush of some sort. I did look through here, make sure there was no dark parts in here, and remove those, because sometimes there are. Any really stringy pieces I removed. So we've got this looking really good. And those 2 smaller cans made a perfect 3 cups of potatoes. So I've got all that done. The first thing I want to do is add a 1/2 cup of sugar. And mix that all up. Make sure the sugar's well dissolved. I'm going to add the eggs that I've mixed well. And I'm going to go ahead and add the butter in, because it needs to be melted, and these potatoes are nice and hot. Okay. I've got the butter in there along with the eggs, and now I'm just going to mix them in, because I want the warmth of the potatoes to melt that butter. And that warmth is actually going to mix through those eggs so they don't decide to start cooking on us. Now we're going to mix in the seasonings. It is not on the recipe. We do need a pinch of salt, which is no big problem. Which right here, salt. I'm going to do a pinch of it. You know, it just helps to make everything taste a little better. And we do need a teaspoon of vanilla, which I'm just using imitation vanilla extract. It works just as well, and it's a lot cheaper. There we go. So we've added the vanilla. We've added the salt. The next thing I want to add is a little bit of cinnamon sugar. I always like to just add a sprinkle of it, just like I do to my pumpkin pies. You'll see that whenever I make them. A little sprinkle of cinnamon sugar, and then a little sprinkle of my homemade pumpkin pie spice. Just a little bit. And then I'm going to whisk that in, or stir that in, excuse me. Now the only thing I believe I have left is my half cup of evaporated milk. So let's go ahead and measure this and get this in. Pour that in. Now we have everything in the pumpkin mixture. We have the topping mixture completely made and in the fridge, which it doesn't need to stay in there long. It just needs to stay in there long enough to keep cool. So whenever we put it on top of this, it doesn't sink to the bottom or separate up. We want it to be able to float on top and stay on top. Whoop, I just made a mess. That way it'll make a wonderful crust. The oven is ready now. I've gotten the topping out of the refrigerator and used my fingers to mush it up a little bit. Now let me show you how I put it on top of the sweet potatoes. And this is why you want it to be cold. So it will stay on the top and not go all the way to the bottom. This just takes a few seconds to put this all around. Get around all the any holes. Once I get the main part done, I put any holes that I see. I went AWOL. That way, when it melts down, it is going to be so delicious. Every part of the top has been covered with some type of a topping. And it's ready to go in the oven at 350 for 35 to 40 minutes. It's been 35 minutes. And as you see, it's still wobbly. So it definitely needs to go in for the extra 5. And then we'll see how that looks in 5 minutes. Cooked it for 40 minutes and it is still jiggly on top. So I'm going to turn the oven off and leave it in here in the oven to firm up just a little bit. Probably about 5 more minutes with the oven completely off. And we'll see where it's at. I've got the sweet potato casserole out of the oven. I've let it cool down, and as it cools down, the jiggling that happens in there quits. It becomes more solid. It isn't like crispy solid, but it's more solid to where there is a solid pecan crust on top and then sweet potato on bottom. It's so good. Okay, and let's dig in. Let's see if it's solid enough that it has a little crust on it, and it does. And it needs to cool a little bit more. It's still a little bit hot. That's why it's coming off like it is. Okay. And here we go. Let's see if it's cooled down. Look at that bite. How amazing it is. So good. So buttery. So sweet. Those candied pecans are so good. Oh my gosh. Just let it cool down a little bit before you serve it. And all this will solid up some more. This is truly a family staple multiple times a year. One of the favorites that I love to cook. It is so good and truly simple. Y'all have got to make it. And let's make Paula Deen's corn casserole. What you need is some sour cream, some whole kernel corn, cheddar cheese, Jiffy muffin mix, creamed corn, and a stick of butter melted. That's it. So let's go ahead and get all this together so we can get it in the oven. And I'm going to go ahead and add in the wetter ingredients first. That way I can get those all incorporated. First thing is the 8 ounces of sour cream going in. The can of creamed corn is going in next. Whole kernel corn is going in next. I'm going to go ahead and add the cheese in and the melted butter. I'm going to go ahead and mix what I've got in here up so far. Get it well incorporated. And the last thing I'm going to add is the Jiffy corn muffin mix. And then stir that in with the rest of the ingredients. Now this mixture is going into my baking dish at 350 for 45 minutes. It said to use a 9x13. I didn't think I needed that big of a dish. I wanted it to be more thicker than thin. So I've just got, I think this is a 1.5 quart or a 2 quart that I'm using right here. And I'm just going to spread that out and put it in the oven, 350 for 45 minutes. Here is the corn casserole. I let it cool down just a little bit, but we're going to get a little bit out and take a taste of it here in just a second. And here is the corn casserole, and I'm going to take a taste of it. And I know it's good. I done had a little bit. This is like a blend of cornbread and corn souffle. It is so good. Another simple recipe that tastes amazing. Your family's going to love it. You've got to make this one also. And today we're going to be making some cranberry apple crunch. I've got some apples I'm going to peel and cut up, some cinnamon sugar. I've got my apple pie spice instead of the spices it's calling for, because that's what I usually do. A little bit of salt, some chopped pecans, some cranberries, all-purpose flour, brown sugar, old-fashioned oats, and some butter. Doesn't call for too many items, but it sounds really good. So let's get to making some cranberry apple crunch. And let's get to making the filling. We're going to put in 3 cups of chopped tart apples. I actually used Honeycrisp instead of the tart because I don't like the tart ones. This is 2 cups of cranberries. There they are. Then I'm going to use 1 cup of sugar and it calls for a teaspoon of ground cinnamon and a pinch of clove. I'm just going to use some of my apple pie spice that I make in it and a little bit of cinnamon sugar on top of it because I know that's going to be good. I'm going to mix this together. As you can see, the sugar coats all of the fruit. It's looking so good already. Look at that. Frosty fruit. I'm going to spray a 9x13 pan and get that ready. And I'm going to go ahead and place the fruit mixture in the bottom of the 9x13 pan. And spread it out real good. Now, we need to get ready to make the topping. Now I'm going to add the melted butter into the same container I just did the cranberries and the apples in. Not that big of a problem. And get that one little area nicely mixed up. And I'm going to go ahead and add all of the rest of the ingredients. The chopped pecans, the flour, brown sugar, and the old-fashioned oats are going in. And I'm going to go ahead and mix this around. That way all the ingredients will be combined to make basically kind of like a crisp topping, basically, because that's what it's called, a crisp. And once I see that all of the flour and sugar has turned that darker color and is not looking white like snow, then I know it's ready to be put on top of the apple and cranberry mixture. And I'm going to take the mixture and basically sprinkle it over top of the apples and the cranberries until it's pretty well covered in this mixture of oatmeal, sugar, and stuff. And then this will go in the oven. I've been preheating the oven at 325, and this will go in the oven for 1 hour uncovered is what it's calling for. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish this up, and then I'll bring you back whenever I get it out of the oven. And here is the apple cranberry crumble. And it is hot, guys. I just got out of the oven. And I'm gonna let this cool off, and then we'll get a spoonful and see how it tastes. And is it a dessert or is it a side? Well, I think it's kind of a side. You know, cranberries that you have usually. This is an excellent substitution for just cranberries. Cranberries and apples. Oh, so good. And trust me, if you don't like cranberries, you will love this. It is so amazing, guys. Y'all have got to make it. You won't believe how good this is. It is amazing. Okay, let's get going on this pecan pie. And like I said, it's not your usual Karo syrup pecan pie. This is Trisha Yearwood's pecan pie. And it's a little different, but I like it because it doesn't have the ooey gooey that I never could seem to get to set up in the Karo. That's not my favorite thing. This one is a little more set up and it does really good. So, first thing we're going to do is turn the oven on to 325. Start preheating that oven. And then I'm going to put some holes in the pie shell. And you want to make sure that there's holes in the pie shell that way. And I do all the way around the sides and all the way along the bottom. So that way as it bakes, if there's any air that gets under there, these holes will help release the air so it won't bubble up the crust. So there you go. Looks like I've got that done pretty well. Okay, let's get started on what's going in the middle of this pie. I'll give you a list of the ingredients. 1 cup brown sugar, 2 eggs mixed up, 1 tablespoon all-purpose flour, 1 cup of regular sugar, 1.5 tablespoons of vanilla, 1 cup of chopped pecans. There is also going to be 1 cup of pecan halves, which I haven't got out yet, 2 tablespoons of just milk, and then 1 stick of butter melted. And I believe that's all of it. Yep, that's everything. So let's get to putting it into the mixing bowl and get it all mixed up together. First thing we're going to do is add the 1 cup of brown sugar, the 1 cup of granulated sugar, and the 2 eggs. Now we are going to go ahead and mix those, and I'm just going to use a fork because I know in a little bit we're going to be putting pecans in there, and you need something that you can get around stuff that's not small, to say the least. So here we go. Okay, we've got that nicely mixed up. The next thing we're going to do is add the chopped pecans, which is 1 cup of chopped pecans, the 1 stick of melted butter, the 2 tablespoons of milk. I'm going to try to pour it without over pouring, but you know how that goes. 1, 2, 1 tablespoon of flour, which is all-purpose flour, 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla. So I'm going to do 1 and a half. Well, that's pretty good. And I'm going to mix this all together. Like I said, it's not as ooey gooey as the Karo, and I don't like that because, I don't like the Karo because I like it to be set up firmer. And this one is that. It sets up a little firmer. It doesn't have all of that Karo syrup at the bottom. I guess some people like it. I'm not a fan. The oven is preheated. We're going to go ahead and pour the ingredients into the pie shell, which this is a deep dish pie shell. It's the only kind of pies I make, I swear, because I like to have lots of stuff in them. I don't know if you can see how rich that looks, because it is rich, and it is going to be really good. Okay, we've got that in there. Now, y'all are going to get to see kind of how my OCD works, because I'm about to put pecans on the top of this. And I'm the type that likes it to be the same. So I'm going to get big ones on the outside here. I may have to speed this up because y'all, it takes me a while to do this. But that's just me. Okay, now that looks good. Now let's get it in the oven. Okay, and it's actually been 40 minutes. I actually had made myself a note that 40 minutes was it. Now what you want to do is whenever you get to the 40 minutes, be able to shake it. And it should be solid, which it is not as solid as I would like it. I think I'm going to give it about 5 more minutes, and then we should be good to go. And it cooked for an additional 5 minutes, and it's definitely solidified. It jiggles a little in the middle, but the rest of it is nice and firm. We're going to take it out of the oven to cool off, and it will firm up the rest of the way. If you can see, it jiggles just a little bit, not much. But it'll firm up the rest of the way, setting out here as it cools. And we'll come back, and we'll show you what it looks like on the inside, and let you get a piece to eat. Or let Danny get a piece to eat, because he's hungry. All right, let's cut into a piece of pie. And little man thinks he's going to get a piece, don't you, bud? Will you wave? Will you wave? He said, nope, not gonna. Okay, let's cut into the pie. Well, that kind of fell to pieces, but let me tell you, it's good because I make it every year. Look at that. That is good stuff. It doesn't look that great. It's a little bit warm. Should let it cool a bit more before I try to serve it. That is the best tasting pecan pie. This is hands down the best pecan pie you will ever taste. Make it for your family. They're gonna love it. Any of those recipes are absolute crowd pleasers. My family loves all of them, and I make them every Thanksgiving. And if you haven't already, press that little button down below. Don't forget to press that little bell and the all notification, because you want to make sure that you get notified each time I put a video up. And don't forget to leave me a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Until next time, see you then.